but I love making music in modern times, so I'm not one of
Hmm.
those guys that's like, get off my lawn with your fucking new shit. I love,
Totally. And no, you've already shown that you are definitely down with the new shit.
I love, there's so many, I can't believe the level of musicianship compared to when we were kids, and it's like a dream really for me. I just love watching. I love a great musician. I'll never be a hater, on like, oh man, that's, we're, you know, our music was, technical in a time where it wasn't that way, but there are bands today playing that fucking, there's no way I could play that shit. I mean, they're incredible, and I'm proud of them. I'm proud of the modern technical metal. I just think that I tip my hat to these guys that just guitar players, bass players, drummers, like just otherworldly shit that they're, I didn't even expect it to get to that level, and
Hmm.
so it's nice because that's what needed to happen, because in the very early stages of death metal, man, it was a lot of knuckle dragging shit, you know.
Yeah.
It was real messy and really underplayed, and that was the thing that really kind of bothered us, and that's why we leaned on those other influences and pulled
Hmm.
that in with, we love that eerie, deep, dark shit. But we were like, we gotta clean this up a little bit and play it. We loved Yes and complicated shit too, and Rush, and combine those things, and also it's like, oh, that's weird. And and you had
Who
Atheist.
who who brought the Latin influence, if there was
Oh,
any?
it was Tony
We
Choi,
always
absolutely. Yeah, it was
it
Tony.
definitely
Well,
just Tony.
actually,
Yeah.
that's not fair because we used Steve took one of the turning points in atheist technicality was Steve Flynn took some Latin drum lessons,
Hmm.
Latin jazz drum lessons for about 6 months, and in that time, Steve's a really smart guy, and he you know learned a lot of shit in a short amount of time, and he was very practiced every single day, and so he used a lot of that stuff. Started using it in timbales, using
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
timbales, which wasn't really ever used in metal, and so he was really kind of, so he introduced it, and then Tony Choi, obviously just that was his natural way of being. So when we did Elements, Steve Flynn wasn't involved, but Tony had a huge role in that Latin vibe of that record. And
Hmm.
we wrote that record in such a short amount of time that there was really no time to think about it or even think about the fact that it had all those Latin qualities until, years later looking back on it. But yeah,
Was
man,
that
Tony,
around in Florida at the time? Like,
what
just
do you mean?
just living in Florida, was there? I mean, I'm imagining maybe some Cuban influence or something, just from the cultural, or that's maybe just me not knowing too much.
No, I mean Tony's from Miami, so if you've
Okay.
ever been to Miami, it's huge Cuban population or that Cuban vibe, and Tony's just always had a natural. Um, no, he is Cuban, so
Okay.
so he has that that just that natural sort of thing that he brought in, and then once I sort of knew that. I mean, we were friends, obviously, the Cynic guys and us, and I lived with Paul Masvidal for a short period of time. I was homeless for a minute, and I needed to go to Miami, so I lived with Paul, and he was kind enough to take me in. And but Tony's just has a natural ability to natural rhythm, and Steve obviously had those early lessons. So
Hmm.
when you know Steve, when we played together, when they played those things from the records, where Steve was using his Latin influence, Steve or Tony automatically had a kind of a different vibe than maybe Roger would have, and um, so yeah, it's there's not a lot of Latin. It's definitely not on Jupiter as much. I don't think.
Hmm.
I don't think there's really any Latin shit going on. Well, there might be. I don't know. It's hard. You kind of get kind of forget the things until you go back and listen to them again. It's like watching a movie you haven't seen in a really long time.
Yeah.
It's
We
kind
got
of
some
weird.
homies, a band called Flub. I'll send you the link later to follow up. But I think the new record there is the continuation of some of that. I've been talking about this recently with people. So there's a
Cool.
couple bands that are trying to take off that trend that was in early tech metal, but didn't really pick up as much as other, like the neoclassical thing got big in tech for a while. And yeah, so.
The
And
drummer,
jazz.
the drummer who played on Elements, his name is Josh Greenbaum. He was
Mhm.
only in the band for he only had 2 weeks to work on that album with us, and
Okay. Yeah.
he was River Phoenix's drummer. So before River
Oh,
Phoenix died, and we were in
wow.
Gainesville when we were doing that, and we stayed up there for 2 months at the studio with Mark Pinsky, the guy who worked with Frank Zappa, and so we loved the studio and we were excited about working with him, coming from Morrisound away from Scott into this new guy. I don't know. It just seemed like the thing to do at the time. And, but it was our first digital record that we'd ever made. But I had worked in the first 2 weeks. We had only 40 days to write that album. The first 2 weeks I was working with a guy and it just wasn't kind of working. And then, Tony became involved and then we got Josh. I had seen Josh Greenbaum play. I was recording with Neurotica in Gainesville. That's where I first found out about that studio, and went to like this jazz improv night. And it's a college town, so there was a lot of young music happening, and I was young as well. And then I saw Josh play, and they were just literally improvising their ass off and fucking playing some super crazy tech shit. I was like, can you do this? Can you do this gig? And he said, yeah. And then in 2 weeks, man, he took what we already had, and then we wrote the rest of the album in the last 2 weeks, and then recorded it, and did all that stuff in 40 days. And there's a lot of complexity to it. And so it was a really special, as much as some people have an indifference with elements, I invite people to go back and listen to it. There's a lot of really interesting shit on the record.
I fucking love